Hi, I'm LG Nolas from the Horse Race Advantage Company. Welcome to our handicapping video series. Today we will be talking about the Breeders' Cup races.
In order to be entered into the Breeders' Cup, horses are generally nominated as weanlings. In other words, they are nominated the year of their birth. Nominations are done once and are good for life. Nominations provide Breeders' Cup World Championship races eligibility. In other words, horses that have been nominated in England or in other parts other than the United States or Northern America, they can also be running in the Breeders' Cup as long as they have been nominated. When not nominated to the Breeders' Cup, horses can still be nominated under a special program which is called the Horses of Racing Age Nomination Program. Breeders' Cup races are generally in November of each year, and the Breeders' Cup races are hosted by different tracks in the country, and they are selected each year. How do you qualify for a Breeders' Cup race? There are 15 races with a maximum of 14 post positions with 2 also eligibles. And pre-entry of horses is generally done October 1 through the 24th. A trainer can enter his horse or pre-enter his horse into a maximum of 2 races with a stated preference. In other words, which race does the trainer think a horse can actually win? A point system is used to rank horses for oversubscribed races for race entry eligibility. Most of the time, there are certain races that are always oversubscribed, and so they use a point system to identify those horses that are allowed to actually be entered into a particular race. The criteria that's being used is performance in the Breeders' Cup Challenge races, how well did the horse do in these challenge races. Then the point system is applied, and then there's a judgment of a special panel of racing experts that determine which horses will actually run in the Breeders' Cup races. Any vacancies in the field are filled by horses in order of the panel preference. In other words, it has to be very competitive because these races are for horses that are the best in the world. The point system. The horse must have accumulated a minimum of 6 points in American or Canadian Graded Stakes races in order to actually be considered for the point system. So if you don't have 6 points, then you automatically fall off the earth here. Juveniles must have accumulated a minimum of 2 points. In other words, the 2-year-olds must have accumulated a minimum of 2 points instead of the 6 points. Winners of Breeders' Cup Challenge races have a precedence over other races. The challenge races are identified by the panel, and they are identified way ahead of time, so that sometimes you'll find automatic berth if they actually win a particular race that's identified as such. If a horse is not ranked in the first 14 in the race of choice, then eligibility for race entry in the race of second choice is determined. So, based upon the points and the Great Stakes races, they may fall off in the first one because the oversubscription on the first choice may be very large, and so you may become eligible in the second choice. Now, after the first 7 horses have been selected using the point system, the remaining horses are selected based on panel's preference to allow participation of high-quality horses. The number of horses that are selected are about 14 horses, and so half of the horses follow this point system, but the other half are really identified by the panel's preference. When we look at the Breeders' Cup races, they are quite lucrative. You see in 2011 we had several races for 2-year-olds, and then we also had races for 3-year-olds and up. And you notice some of them are open competition, some of them are restricted to colts and geldings, and some of them are restricted to fillies, and some of them are restricted to fillies and mares. Also notice that the distance varies and the track surface varies. The purses also vary from 500,000 for a 2-year open, 6 furlongs, which is a sprint, and that's 500,000. You notice that the longer the race, the more money. So a mile and 16 on the dirt has a 2 million, while a mile on the turf is 1 million. And that holds true for both the colts and the fillies. Now, the fillies mare and sprint, 7 furlongs still considered a sprint, on the dirt is 1 million. And then you go to the mile and 3/8 for the turf for 2 million, and the mile and 8 on the dirt for 2 million. These are the fillies and mares races. When we go to the next slide, we see that the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint for 3-year-olds and up, and the Turf Mile and the Emirates Airline Breeders' Cup Turf are open races. In other words, both the colts, geldings, and fillies can run in this race. The 5 furlong turf with sprint race is a $1 million race, and the 1 mile turf is a $2 million race. Notice as this goes longer, it's $3 million. Okay, so the Breeders' Cup Marathon, which is also for 3-year-olds and up, open, it's a 1 3/4 mile and a dirt, and the purse is 500,000. Now, this one is a very long race, like you say, it's a marathon race. Traditionally in Northern America, they don't have these very long races, and so there are not very many horses that actually trained to be running that distance. And so you can see also that it's actually not very encouraging because the purse is also a whole lot less. The Breeders' Cup Sprint race is for 3-year-olds and up, the 6 furlong in the dirt is 1.5 million. Then the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile is 1 mile, and the dirt is 1 million. Now, this is interesting here because you can see 1 mile dirt is 1 million, and 1 mile turf is 2 million. So you would actually like to see a horse in a turf, which is interesting because in Northern America, there are not very many turf races. There are more dirt horses. And so the European community can actually come in with a turf horse, where in Europe there are more turf races. And so you will see that a European horse can actually take this $2 million, $3 million, because they'd be interested to come over to the United States and actually make this kind of money, because 60% of $3 million is quite a bit, and 1.5 miles, that's what they're used to in Europe and other parts of the world. But the biggest race that people look for are the Breeders' Cup Classic, which is 3-year-olds and up, and it's open competition, meaning both the colts and the fillies and mares can run in this particular race. But notice it's 1.25 miles and it's in dirt, and it pays $5 million. So this is the big money race that everybody is looking for. So what is the significance of these Breeders' Cup races? The presumption here is that the best horses in the world will be competing in the Breeders' Cup races. And there are significant breeding implications. There's a saying that says, breed the best to the best in order to get the best. The stud fees of sires of the winners will most likely increase when their offspring actually win Breeders' Cup races. So if the stud fee was $20,000 before, it may actually increase to $30,000 or more. There's also significant stallion potential with colts that are being retired from these races. And so instead of a $10,000, $20,000 stud fee, they can actually demand $30,000 to $40,000 or even higher stud fees. So the colts that come off these Breeders' Cup races are significantly more valuable. In addition to that, the brood mares become much more valuable. The fillies and mares that are coming out of these races and have actually won these races become valuable brood mare potentials.
This concludes the video on the Breeders' Cup races. I Hope you found this very informative, and I hope to see you in the winner's circle often. Thank you.